Hi, it's Victoria.
How are you doing today, Victoria?
I'm doing very well. I'm really excited for all of this today.
I'm so excited to talk with you because the reason why is I'm somebody who uses those VR goggles. And the thing is that the way you use your words, I don't need those goggles. You put me inside a story where I get consumed by everything that you were painting.
Wow, that's a very high compliment, but that's exactly what I'm aiming for in all of my books. I like to say that I'm an entertainer first, and if I haven't immersed you and buckled you into a roller coaster, I haven't done my job.
So then you totally believe in theater of the mind.
I do, absolutely. I'm one of those people who, when I read a book, I see it like a movie in my head.
Mm-hmm. Okay, since you set me up on that one, I've got to come this way. I was going to say don't go the route of Netflix and stuff like that, but since you played it out in your head first, you've got to be dreaming about making this go to Hulu or even into a movie form.
Oh, always. Every writer dreams about that. They dream about the biggest audience possible experiencing their work. But for me, it's just, I'm trying to see it the way an audience would so I can communicate it as best on the page so I can do that level of immersion. But of course, I'm always dreaming about that.
Where did you learn that art of it's not about me, it's about those who receive?
I went to film school. I studied screenwriting in college, and you're always in service of the audience because if you can't make the audience believe in your unbelievable things, then you're not telling them a story. They're not going to receive it.
The final clash between kingdoms and gods. I mean, all must rise to fight. I love to hear those words because that tells me that it's not just one person going into battle. We have to create a community first, and that community must move forward. And I like that kind of basically subliminal writing.
Yes, absolutely. And when I set out to write this story, I wasn't really thinking about sort of a theme or a motif or any kind of message I wanted to convey. It was more the story itself that enamored me. But as I was writing it, I realized the thing that I was communicating within myself was the sort of frustration I have with our world and our communities that can see all of these issues that affect all of us, but can't put aside our differences to sort of address them. And as I was writing these books, I realized that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get that frustration out and sort of write what I want to see in our world.
When these battles are witnessed by your imagination first, does it come out chronologically, or do you sit there and you have to keep coming back to it to build up the scene?
A little bit of both. I have to write my books chronologically because I have to really be able to trace that sort of character journey. But with the battles themselves, I go from sort of a bird's eye view where I literally look at it from a top-down angle and I kind of draw out what it's going to look like from sort of a schematic standpoint. And then when I'm in it, you're trying to be as visceral and immediate as possible and really ground the audience in something that could otherwise be very confusing.
Well, you know what's really interesting? I wish they made movies like that, but they don't. They go beginning, middle, end. Okay, well, let's go over here. Let's tweak this. Let's do that. But I mean, I'm totally with you when it comes. Let me lay it out first, and then we'll let the editors take it from there.
A little bit.
How do you envision the choice of preparing for a larger-than-life finale? Because I've always wanted. I'm a book writer, but I don't write like you do. I'm one of those self-help kind of writers. And the thing is, though, is that you're coming up, you're building up the scene, building it up, and all of a sudden, boom. How does it move through you? I mean, I would be up walking around as much as possible to kind of shake it off.
Yeah, a little bit. And my husband knows which days I'm writing in a way that he can't interact with me for a little bit afterwards. I have to sort of, it takes a lot to get into it, and then it takes a lot to come out of it, too. It's almost like diving or something like that. You got to swim down and then come back up slowly. Writing is such a muscle, and at first it can be really weak and a little bit rusty, and then as I carry on in the books, I get better and better and faster and a little more unhinged, probably.
Do you believe that books are not written, but words are? In other words, one word has to lead to the next one.
Absolutely. I mean, we can write beautiful sentences and lovely turns of phrase, but it needs to amount to something, and I think books are definitely more than the sum of their parts.
One of the things you talked about was your husband, and that's one thing that listeners don't understand is that relationship with those that are in our house with us. When we go into that room or into that zone, it's not that we're disconnecting from our love for them. It's like, go let them be them. Just do you have that kind of a relationship? Just let me create, please.
Yes. And I'm a little lucky in that the structure of our lives really is conducive to my work and his work. He works out of the house. I work from home. For the most part, the person I interact with the most isn't a person, it's my dog. But it's lovely because then I get to work all day, be by myself, be in my own little world. And when he comes home, I'm sort of ready to interact with other people.
Well, no, I totally get having the dog in there because Jazzy is with me at all times. The problem is when I go out there in the real world, I want my dog to be with me, but it's like, absolutely. I got to have my little buddy with me.
I know. I mean, I'm on a book tour right now, and all I can think is I wish my dog was right here.
Yeah. So when you have this, first of all, this is not a shallow battle. Listeners need to understand that this is a real, honest to God, ruthless enemy that's in here, a demon god. How do you envision that? Because as a writer, my first wife would sit there and get pictures of who she thought was playing that role. This one, where did the image come from?
I think it's a little bit internal, and we all have sort of that amorphous shape in our heads of something that's almost too terrifying to really perceive fully. So in the story, I tried to hold on to that idea of that thing you glimpse out of the corner of your eye. And if you look at it fully, you'll never be able to look away again. So I wanted to give those flashes and sort of let the audience fill in the blanks themselves, because that makes it all the more terrifying and personal.
Writers are always working on the next project. Can you talk about that next one?
I'm in the middle of working on a book proposal for what will hopefully be my adult debut. Up until now, I've written strictly young adult and maybe a little bit of crossover with Realmbreaker, but this is going to be firmly in the adult space and in our real world. It's going to ideally be a historical fiction. But I'm figuring that out because in the past, I've only ever written a whole book and then turned around and tried to figure out what to do with it. Or I've just said, hey, here's what I want to write. And now I'm sort of in uncharted territory. Wow.
I'm just glad you gave yourself permission to actually write, because so many people aren't writing these days. And we need your seeds to give us some fruit. And you're definitely doing that.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, so many people say, oh, I would just write if I had the time or if I had this or that. And I know so many authors who work against so many more restrictions than I have and still make it happen. So I feel like if you've got a story to tell, you have to do it.
I love it. Please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You bet. You be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you.